I mean, Donald Trump said promises made, promises kept, and I mean, he's got a long list of promises there to get through. But mainly, how does this change the way that Australia deals with America now?
Well, I think we have to recognise that President Trump wants to put America first, which means that when we pitch the issues we have in common that we want to work on, we also have to pitch it not just in terms of what we believe is in our interest, but also in what is in America's interest. We have to keep reminding Americans of the security interest they have in being present in the Indo-Pacific, in being part of the AUKUS, formulation, part of the Quad, and all of the other groupings in the region. It's very important for the region that there is a strong American presence. We have to convince President Trump that saying no more wars does not mean that America does not do what it can to deter potential adversaries in the Indo-Pacific in concert with allies and partners.
I mean, there's a lot of issues, particularly the Middle Eastern conflict, but also the Russia-Ukraine conflict as well, reportedly that Trump has spoken with Putin. How does he plan to stop this conflict and de-escalate tensions?
Well, he's sent out some mixed signals on Russia-Ukraine. It's been reported that he's told Putin very recently not to do more stuff. On other occasions, he's sort of suggested that the US should not be further supporting Ukraine. I think he's formulating this as he goes along and as he gets more information. I think he's very determined to show that he can bring this conflict to an end. The most likely way it'll end is like what they call a frozen conflict, where essentially the two sides just agree to stop where they are, which means that 20% of Ukraine ends up in Russian hands potentially. I can't see President Trump pushing President Putin out of Ukraine. In the Middle East, very close to Netanyahu, they've sort of kissed and made up over recent years. I don't know that President Trump has given Netanyahu a full blank check in terms of what he can do in Gaza and elsewhere, but he will be very supportive of Netanyahu because Trump is very antagonistic towards the Iranians, particularly now that they're probably closer to nuclear weapons than they were a few years ago.
Yeah, it's a key issue and key concern for Australia as well moving forward. I just want to go back a second to talk about the tariffs. I mean, Trump has spoken about his long love for tariffs, particularly steel and aluminium, for example, that impact Australia. Australia was previously one of the very few countries to be exempt from these. Will Australia survive Trump's looming tariffs, or will there likely be a clash on this?
The tariffs affect us in two ways. First of all, any direct trade. It's possible we may get an exemption or partial exemption because we're close allies. That's sort of worked in the past. But the second level at which this affects us is if there's a more global sort of trade war as the EU, China and others respond to higher tariffs. Now, it may be that President Trump is just using the threat of higher tariffs to get concessions from others, particularly the Chinese. And the Chinese have shown the other day they just put together a very big stimulus package for their economy, that they're getting ready for potential trade conflict with President Trump. And of course, if China's growth is affected by higher US tariffs, that'll flow on to Australia, the demand for our resources and so on.
And I mean, Trump is also likely to want more money on defence to keep AUKUS on track. How should Australia respond when it comes to that?
Well, I think we should have the discussion with the administration because we're already putting in more than $3 billion into the US industrial base to help with the uplift of capability to deliver AUKUS. So I think we should, first of all, have that discussion. And we are increasing our defence spending, as are other countries in the region like Japan and Korea. In fact, the countries in the Indo-Pacific are doing a lot to help themselves on the defence side. And this is something that we have to convince President Trump is happening in our region. We're more than pulling our weight. The other thing to think about with AUKUS is that if someone like Elon Musk is successful in dealing with issues around size of government, then we should be thinking about how someone like that helps with maybe better procurement rules and supply chains so we can deliver the capability we're talking about more quickly.
Yeah, really interesting you mentioned the Elon Musk point there. We do have to wrap things up, Arthur, but you're probably the best person to ask this. Do you think Kevin Rudd should remain as ambassador?
I would put my money on Kevin surviving. He's reached out to the Republicans. And in the end, Holly, the most important relationship is between the president and the prime minister. And they don't have to love each other, but they have to be able to get on with each other in the interest of both countries. So I'd be focusing on the relationship between Trump and Albanese.
Yep, let's hope they can be friends. Arthur, thanks for your time today.
Thanks very much, Holly.